Welcome in to the Paul Kowarski podcast. I am at Edley's, one of 9 locations in Middle Tennessee, the newest in Gallatin. I'm in 5 Points in East Nashville at 1004 Woodland Street. The Paul Kowarski podcast. JT Runke helping me out with production. Pete Prisco is going to be with us in a little while, a big Will Levis supporter coming out of college. Thought he was the best guy in last year's draft. We're going to get an update on what Pete from CBS Sports thinks of Levis at this stage. Going to talk about the passing game struggle. Going to talk about Calvin Ridley's role in the struggle. Going to talk about why the play clock keeps running down on the Titans offense. Going to talk about the bad practice that they had on Wednesday and much more. Thanks for coming. We're sponsored by ZEN Sports, in addition to Edley. ZEN Sports, where you need to be placing your bets on all of the football action this week. Thanks for being here. Thanks to Leon, who's behind the bar taking care of me here. Before we get to Pete in about 15 minutes, we're going to hash through what's going on with this offense, a lot of which I have written about this week. So I hope you're reading it at paulkowarski.com, where you need to be a member to get access to all the best news and analysis on the Titans. $7.50 a month, the price of a fancy cocktail. Well worth it. So you have to look at the Titans passing offense right now with a lot of concern. Levis is gun shy. He's not processing things well. There's a lot of film out there. I've included some of it in my tweets. I've retweeted it on my Twitter timeline. First read, easy stuff where he's late. These are completions that need to be made. That need to start drives and start series and move the chains and get things going. It would be a far more functional offense if he just hit these simple passes and got those right. There are places for him to throw. If you look at the film clips, he's late on too many first reads in what's often just a progression offense, right? So if he could find this stuff, everything would be better. Nick Holtz talked to us this morning, and he said they got together on Monday as an entire offense. Usually it's kind of a siloed thing, right? The offensive line is looking at what they did, and the backs are looking at what they did, and the quarterbacks are looking at what they did, and on and on. They got together as an entire offense, and they watched every passing play in the game. And they said, where should the ball be going? Anybody disagree with the idea of where the ball should be going? How was this blocked up? They reviewed each play as a group with open-mindedness, allowing everybody to say their piece. And he thought it was a very healthy exercise, and that everybody it was a good, get everybody on the same page sort of thing. And it sounds like it was a healthy thing, and it sounds like they came out of that. If there was any level of disagreement or confusion or disconnect in terms of what they're trying to do, what they should be doing, that there was a more unified vision on what the passing offense is trying to do and how they're trying to do it, and all of that coming out of this meeting. So that seems like a healthy thing, a better thing. All of it, again, would be better if Levis was throwing on target more. It certainly would be better, too. And we've talked a lot about Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley was 0 for 8 on 8 targets on Sunday. Now, 5 of those balls were uncatchable. So that's a Levis problem, first and foremost. 3 of them, I think that Ridley could have done far better on. I look at a site called Fantasy Pros for a lot of second-level stats because they do a lot of counting. They say 11 of Ridley's 27 targets so far have been catchable. Only 11. So we're killing him for catching just a third of the balls thrown his direction. But by their count, 11 were catchable with 2 drops. Now, this is an easy thing to look at the throw and say whether it was catchable or not. It's a more difficult thing. It's a thing that we can't know, that we won't know, that there's no stat for, as to whether Ridley's been in the right place on these throws. So there's potential that Ridley at times is throwing the ball. That Levis at times is throwing the ball to the right place, to where Ridley's supposed to be, and that Ridley's not there, and that it then makes the ball uncatchable, and then it's actually on Ridley. So our tendency, obviously, because we look at it and say it's uncatchable, is to put it on the quarterback. But it may well be on the receiver in terms of his ability to be where he's supposed to be. We don't know about that. Here's Calvin on, he expressed frustration on Sunday. People took it too far. They called it a tirade. They called him irate. He was none of those things. He cursed a couple of times in saying that he wanted the ball earlier. And those 8 targets, 2 came in the first half. I think there weren't any in the first quarter. 5 of them were in the fourth quarter. He wanted the ball earlier. He said so. Then Wednesday, in a calmer setting, he reflected on those comments from Sunday. Here he is.
On Sunday?
I think I was more frustrated about, losing and not really helping in the beginning or anything. I wasn't frustrated with my coach, players, or anything. I was just want to help us lose if we're going to lose. You know what I'm saying? That's all I was trying to say. Mm-hmm.
I want to help us lose if we're going to lose. I mean, that's not a bad thing for Calvin Ridley to say at this stage. All of this is a given. Will Levis and Calvin Ridley did not have a good connection in training camp, and we were told, don't worry about it. It's not going to be a thing. And, we didn't see it. We didn't see it. Don't worry, it's not going to be a thing. It's a big thing. They're not on the same page. Split the blame as you will. Now, today, Holtz said there are things we can do to guarantee getting him the ball, and we need to do those things. So let's see those things. I've been calling for those things. I presume that some of these things that they were – I presume that they targeted him 8 times he would get the ball. Obviously, it's not as simple as that. And so now they need to do even more simple and do the obvious things. Now, it was very interesting. Nick Holtz, this was an excellent press session for Nick Holtz. He said, the second play of the game, I'm quoting now, I scribbled this down instead of getting the video. Second play of the game, he should have gotten the ball. It was a slant route on the backside. We got fooled by the coverage and the look. We end up throwing the bubble to the right. He sees that, Calvin. We know Calvin is frustrated and everybody is frustrated. So there's an example, right? Why aren't they targeting him early? Well, they intended to target him on the second play of the game. And Levis made a mistake. We got fooled by the coverage and the look. That's Holtz being kind. Who is the we there? Levis is the we there. Levis failed to read it properly and to get the things done. Levis and Ridley, this failed connection. I asked Levis outright, how much of it is on you not throwing accurate balls for him? And here's what Levis had to say.
I don't know off the top of my head. I definitely could have thrown some better balls to him here and there. But it's not something that we can point fingers at or whose fault it is. But he knows, I can be better. I know he can be better. And we all know we can be better at everything that we're doing. And we're all just trying to work as hard as we can to get those numbers up and trust that the connection that we know can be, fruitful for us is gonna get there.
And Levis, Ridley, darn it. Ridley said, we need to just go back to practice. We need to go back to practice and keep working on it. And there's no other answer than that. I think that Ridley, in seeing some of this stuff, seems to round off some routes. He's not particularly sharp on some of this stuff. There's also some stuff out there that they're tipping. It was only 5 plays, but a Colts film guy put out, if Ridley's tight to the one side of the formation, opposite heavy number of wide receivers on the other side, he's running a 12-yard out. He showed 4 of them, and then he showed a Colts cornerback breaking it up because he had reason off of those 4 snaps from earlier in the season and probably more to know that that's what the Titans were doing. Hopefully the Titans, if it is, and it is only 4 snaps, but if that is a big tendency, they need to do something off of that tendency to burn the next quarterback that thinks he knows exactly what's going on. Here's Tyler Boyd, who knows this offense better than anybody connected to this whole operation outside of Callahan because he was with Callahan in Cincinnati for all 5 years of Callahan being Zach Taylor's right-hand man in Cincinnati. And here's Boyd on the state of the passing offense right now.
Absolutely, because when you got weapons on this team like us, and not the results and statistics that everybody think we should have, it's kind of up and down, So we all want to get more targets and catch a lot more balls to help this team win, and that hasn't been our MO right now. The run game been our successful point, and we just got to kind of just rally off that. We just got to kind of make those plays when the ball's in the air, and just kind of we got to just play complementary football, and on all phases of the field, So, we just got to get everything going, man. Once we start connecting on the pass game, then the sky's the limit.
How much? Right now, they're a run team. And that'd be okay if being a run team was a winning formula, but being a run team is not a winning formula for them. They need to blend some legitimate passing game into what they are doing. Bomp asks, why is Nick Holtz in charge of managing Levis's struggles? Do I feel he's qualified to develop a young quarterback? Well, who said he's in charge? He's part of what's going on. You have a head coach who's an offensive guy, so he's number one. Holtz is number two. Bo Hardigree is number three, which is not uncommon. Offensive head coach, offensive coordinator is not a play caller, quarterback coach, team of three. Last year, you would have said Vrabel as a non-offensive head coach, Tim Kelly, Charles London. Three guys who are trying to build up a young quarterback and help him have success. There are young guys. I don't know that much about Holtz yet. I liked a lot of what he had to say today. But why are other teams allowed to have young offensive minds in positions to emerge to be successful and the Titans aren't? I mean, it's 5 games. I think we all have questions about whether Levis is capable and competent to be what we expect. And here's a coach that, is in position to do it. Pete Prisco of CBS Sports was ahead of the curve. He went online when people thought it was crazy to go online, when he had a good newspaper job in Jacksonville. He covered the Jaguars coming into the league and for a long time. Knows Tom Coughlin, Tony Baselli, Fred Taylor, all of those original Jags. Covered the team that lost to the Titans, who went to the Super Bowl. Outspoken guy, knows X's and O's, and has opinions that run counter to popular national opinion a lot, which is why I love him. We've been friends for a long time. I'm really happy to welcome him to the show. Pete, thanks for squeezing in some time. How are you?
What's up? How are you, Paul? Are you good?
Look at you. You look very comfortable sitting back.
Hey, by the way, where are you? That looks like a fun place.
I am at Edley's Barbecue, which is they got 9 places around Nashville. They're the best barbecue place in Tennessee, and I'm lucky enough to be friends with the owner and they're a sponsor of my show. Awesome. So next time you're down here, you got to eat here because it is you're not going to find it in Florida, just like I'm not going to find the crab that you have access to. So great spot. Thanks for asking. You were a big Will Levis guy when he was coming out. Remind us quickly of what you thought of him coming out of Kentucky.
Well, look, I'll be honest with you. What I've seen from him this year, I'm really disappointed. But it's not just him, by the way. I want to get to all that. But coming out of Kentucky, I saw a kid that was his junior year, looked like he was going to be a star quarterback. The next year, he got hurt. The offensive coordinator changed. He struggled, wasn't the same guy. So I figured he'd go to a team and he'd be able to sit for a little bit and learn an offense and get well coached. And then he was rushed in. He played last year, and I thought he did some really good things. So I, for one, thought he would take the next step. So far, it hasn't happened. And there are reasons. It's not just him, by the way. You know that. But there are reasons why he hasn't.
So last year, in the first year, obviously without great offensive coaching. I mean, Mike Vrabel's a defensive guy. Hadn't had great success on offense, even with Matt LaFleur. Had 2 good years of Arthur Smith. Outside of that, not a lot of good offensive things during his tenure, though his tenure, people are going to maybe come to realize was a lot better than people maybe thought on his way out the door. But now you have an offensive coach coming in who's a disciple of Zach Taylor, who's a disciple of good people. Watched Joe Burrow very closely, was close to Matt Stafford, was close to Peyton Manning, comes in, maybe not the greatest weapons, but they upgrade the weaponry. Certainly, the Titans didn't have anything at wide receiver last year beyond DeAndre Hopkins. Move away from the many think ancient thinking with Derrick Henry running the ball on first and second down virtually every series. Things are supposed to get a lot better, and instead he's regressing. Only thing that's up is completion percentage. What do you think the disconnect's been here? And do those who liked him maybe did you misread him?
Well, I mean, look, I can't sit here and say he's played to my expectations. So right now it looks like a misread. But having said all that, the offensive line the first couple of weeks was awful. He makes good plays. He just has to cut out the dumb ones. I mean, there's been a lot of dumb plays, as you know. You can't be a hero on every play, and I think that's his biggest knock on him. I'll go back a couple of games ago against Miami before he got hurt. That throw to me was the one that bothered me as much as any of his mistakes, because he never saw the guy. But then you go see Kurt Warner break it down, and Kurt Warner says –
very apologetic.
Right. And so I never played quarterback, so I listened to Kurt Warner, and when I looked at it and watched it, I said, okay. Then I went back and I watched past week's game. And I know there's a lot of stuff out there about him overthrowing Ridley and missing Ridley when he's open and everything. Okay, Ridley dropped successive plays. He dropped one on the sideline he should have caught. He dropped one in the middle of the field that was a rifle shot for about 20 yards. He should have caught that one. He doesn't get open. There was a play during that game where Levis almost was intercepted by the underneath guy, you remember? It was an 8-man protection, a 2-man route. They blitzed him, and he got hit. And you watch the play, Ridley's running to coverage. He's one of the only 2 receivers on the route, and he's running. He doesn't even try and break off his route. He's still running when he's throwing the football. So that's not on Levis. The one, and then when you watch the game, the one that was intercepted down the field, I was sitting there thinking, watching the game, I go, oh, what a terrible throw. And then you watch it, and he's getting blasted by a linebacker because Skoronski didn't pick him up, and that ball kind of flutters as he's throwing it. So there's a variety of reasons. Also, Boyd can't run. Hopkins can't run. And I know there's a data out there that says Ridley's getting open. I didn't see it in that game for sure. So I think it's a variety of things, and that's why I think he's regressing. I think he's pressing a little bit too much. And they need to let him go on earlier down sometimes, too. You know, they open the game, and they set it up. I'll give them this. Bubble screen, bubble screen, bubble screen, and then they faked the bubble screen and got a touchdown off it. So they set it up. But they got to drive – and I think Levis said something about this week, driving the ball down the field, particularly on early downs.
So when they signed Ridley, what did you think? Obviously, they failed. The A.J. Brown trade is going to haunt them for years still. Treylon Burks is a nothing. But in free agency, Ridley's the most attractive guy. Certainly the speed that they haven't had. He's had big games in Atlanta and in Jacksonville. You follow the Jags particularly closely. Did you think it was a good signing here that could Callahan envisions him as his Jamar Chase? We know he's not Jamar Chase, but in a Jamar Chase-like role, did you like that idea? Do you like that idea?
Well, the knock on Ridley was he didn't always run the right route. That was the knock on him in Jacksonville. And I don't know if that's been a knock on him there, but I did like it. I thought he would help. I thought he would help Levis in a big deal, in a big way. They don't have speed, and they needed that. I mean, Hopkins, for all his greatness over the years, has never been a burner, and he's slowed down. Boyd has really slowed down, and I think that's a problem for them. In fact, I think, the kid's not hurt, right? The little slot receiver from Tulane, he's not hurt.
Jones, Jackson. Yeah, he's not hurt. He's just returning. They haven't used him.
Play him. He needs to play. He can run. I would play him. Put him in the slot. Let him create some, deep threats down the field. That's what I would get him on the field. Also, the offensive line, it's been a mess. And it's getting – look, Latham is going to be – that's a big-time player there now. They hit that one. And they also hit by the way, they also hit my little cornerback from Louisville I loved. That kid's going to be a big time player.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about Owuzie not getting back in the lineup when he's healthy because Brownlee has played.
He's been great. And Sweat has been big in the middle of that. I mean, so they had a good draft, but I just think, again, the right tackle, the right guard, questionable. The center, they paid a lot of money for him. He's an upgrade, but how much? It's just not a great unit. And I don't like sometimes the way they call plays. I think they need to get the ball. I'm with Levis. Let him throw it down the field. What are they scared of? If he's going to make a mistake, he makes a mistake. He makes a mistake. He makes dumb mistakes when they don't throw it down the field.
It seems like, though, Pete, there is stuff for him to throw down the field, and he's become maybe reluctant and gun shy because of the mistakes he's made to do it.
I don't know. I watched that. In fact, I watched it this morning. There weren't a lot of. Usually when a guy passes on stuff, I'll say, okay, he passed on stuff. I didn't see a lot of that at all. There really wasn't. And I look for it. I do the whole thing. I didn't see a lot of stuff where he turned it down.
I'm with you entirely. I mean, I think if they're going to go down with this guy and their season is about developing him or seeing what they've got, go down swinging. We haven't seen the wild throws this year that we saw last year, which are the one thing that made him attractive. And he feels boxed in, whether it's his doing, play calling doing, or whatever. What's the sense of getting conservative with him? If you want to be conservative, you can be conservative with Mason Rudolph, who isn't going to make any mistakes because he's, we know
he's not going to make any wow plays either.
Right.
That's the problem.
But you're not getting them as
there was one play where Levis ran out of the pocket when he probably could have threw it to Hopkins in the middle of the field for a short game because Hopkins is just sitting there, but he probably should have done that. He ran out of there. But for the most part, there wasn't a lot of that last week. And so, a lot of it's horizontal. A lot of it's to the sidelines. And they should be taking stuff down the field. But when you don't have guys who can run, there are many times when he puts his foot in the ground and he's ready to load and there's nobody open. Some of those guys are still running the routes.
What do you do now? I mean, you work on this stuff that you're talking about, but none of those guys are getting any faster. You got to use Ridley better, and they've struggled to connect since training camp. I think we talked about it when you visited training camp. They still haven't figured it out 6 games in, which is crazy, 6 weeks in. But maybe they win a couple of these games with Rudolph because he doesn't make the mistakes, but he doesn't have the ceiling on the throws like you're saying. We all agree on that. But are you just giving Levis the entire season, even if it's disastrous?
You have to. You have to let it play out. You have to find. I mean, this is a perfect example. Go on the road against Buffalo and don't play conservative. Let them throw it. Let them throw it around. I know Buffalo's had some run defense issues, but let them drive the ball down the field. If you put a quarterback in passing situations, he's going to fail eventually. I don't care who you are. With the way the rushers are and how bad the offensive line play is in this league, they're going to fail. So you dictate tempo a little bit. And do, Ridley is a deep ball guy. Take some shots. Even if you don't hit him, take the shots down the field. Stretch it a little
bit. Despite these deficiencies that we're talking about, does this team, new coaching staff, semi-new front office, have a verdict on Levis at the end of this season?
Yes, they will. I mean, he hasn't even played 16, 17 games yet. He hadn't even done that yet. No.
But once he does, there's enough.
By the end of the season, you will know who he is.
And then if he's not the guy, what's the course of action then? Because it's not a great quarterback draft. It doesn't seem like they're going to have a pretty good pick. They talk about wanting 8, 9, 10-man classes. I hate to talk draft in October, but it seems to me like the better course of action than drafting one of these quarterbacks who might be a force is to make a trade like they did the year that they gave up Jared Goff when they didn't need him because they had Mariota and still in the experimental phase, would be to load up on picks by letting somebody else want one of these quarterbacks.
Yeah, it depends on where they are in the pecking order. It depends on where this season goes. But you got to get a quarterback. If he's not the answer, where are you getting him?
I don't know. Maybe you're chasing Sam Darnold or looking at one of these guys of the
think about that
failed first-time guys who come around the second time.
But think about that. You're chasing Sam Darnold. If you would have said that a couple of years ago,
I know it's hysterical.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'd load up the roster though.
You'd load up the roster and maybe do makeshift at quarterback.
Yeah. I mean, if it's a total disaster with Levis, then you got to go get a quarterback somewhere, somebody, But if it's not a total disaster with him and he plays okay the rest of the way and they still don't have a high pick, you still want to get more picks. Because you got to look, the right side of that line needs to be better. You know that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
and they need an edge. They can't rush the passer.
And they need speed. They need speed.
And they need a young receiver. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in that case, even if it's a disaster with Levis, it's conceivable that you're starting with Levis next year, or he's in a competition with a makeshift guy.
Would you rather have Mac Jones or Levis next year?
Yeah. I'm not thinking about Mac Jones, but I'm wondering what you think of somebody like. I'm just trying to consider the next guys who could be the next Darnold, Mayfield, even Flacco-ish kind of guys. And I'm wondering about Zach Wilson, who's been sitting. I'm wondering about Trey Lance, who's been sitting. Who's a guy that's been sitting who maybe could enter that pool?
I mean, Mac Jones would be a better option than those, or as good as,
Yeah.
Trey Lance. I mean, Trey Lance maybe because you could do things with. I don't know. You'd have to.
It's hard to predict those guys until they show up, and then you're like, look.
Yeah.
So, what do you think overall of Callahan and this coaching staff?
Well, I mean, I think he's a bright guy. I just think he's got to take the training wheels off and go. I think he might be coaching a little scared too. You know what I mean? I don't think we've seen his empty his bag yet. Empty the bag. Let it go. Go down with that guy. Find out what he is. So let it go. Give him everything you have. Everything you want to use Ridley like Chase? Let him play like Chase. Go. Throw the ball down the field. It looked to me early in the season they were scared of their offensive line a great deal.
Definitely.
And they call plays that way. Well, it's kind of solidified a little bit. It's better. They put the other kid in there at right tackle. I mean, right? So they made a change over there.
Yeah, Leroy Watson now.
Yeah. And he wasn't good, but he wasn't a disaster either. And so let's see how that comes together. I mean, also, I thought Wiley would be better than he is. He hasn't been. I mean, they don't
look to him.
No. And the other tight end,
Jake.
Bubble screen on third down, wasn't that the first third down of the game?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and he got tackled for no gain or something.
So Rand Carthon went and signed a bunch of veterans for a bunch of money. Snead's not been great. Ridley's not been great. Cushenberry's not been great. Tony Pollard's been the best of the lot. How do you assess if this is how it goes for this team, that approach, and what's on Carthon's shoulders for that approach?
Well, let's see. So you mentioned Snead. He hasn't come close to playing to his level.
Not yet.
I don't think. No. Awuzie has been hurt.
Yep.
So there's a negative. They just got rid of the guy. They didn't pay anything for.
No, Adams was a flyer.
No.
Cushenberry.
He's better than Brewer.
Yeah, sure.
So are you.
But not as much better as you wanted. I think they did well with Kenneth Murray and Ernest Jones. I like those guys.
Yeah, those guys have been solid. But you're right. They didn't. And Ridley's been an overpay. I mean, that's all you can say right now. He's an overpay. So you're right. That it hasn't been a great class for him. And personally, I wouldn't take Brownlee off the field like you said. That kid's aggressive. The interception he made, he got called for the penalty. That was a great play. I mean,
acrobatic.
And then I think there were plays where he knocked the pass down, and then he came in and made a tackle on a successive plays there. I love him. In fact, I'm doing something on young players that have caught my eye, and he's going to be one of them for next week. I loved him coming out. He was on my Better Than team, and I really like what he's done in the NFL. He's a Florida kid.
I'll get you out on this. Defensively, they rank very nicely with yards, and the points are good. 3 touchdowns count against them that weren't theirs. But Ernest Jones has been very frank at saying this. Like, we're a good defense when it doesn't matter. and when the big plays come, Aaron Rodgers drove down and had a game-winning touchdown, and Malik Willis beat us. And we didn't do anything in the fourth quarter when the Colts took the game away from us. There's some good personnel on that field. They don't rush the passer, which puts a good back end in jeopardy. How do you size up their defense?
Yeah, I think it's been a little bit of a disappointment for a lot of the reasons you said. They don't rush the passer. I mean, I thought with two guys in the middle, I thought they'd be able to get the ends free, and it hasn't worked out that way. So I'm with you. I don't, and I think he's a good defensive coordinator. I think he's going to be really good in this league for a long time. He's going to be a head coach. But right now, without being able to rush the passer, I think that shows up on a weekly basis. But, Snead's got to make that play in the end zone against Pittman. You can't allow that to happen.
And the pass interference before it sets it up in the first place.
Right.
He's grabbing an arm.
Yeah, he grabbed his arm. He's been a disappointment so far.
Appreciate you very much, Pete. This division, Houston's going to run away. Indy and Jacksonville just everybody's
Jacksonville's awful because I think the whole thing needs to be blown up and start all over again. Indy, every year everybody says the Colts are going to be good. Are they ever any good?
Yeah.
When was the last time they won a division? Every other team's won a division.
It's funny, though. They did nothing personnel-wise. They added a backup quarterback and a defensive lineman. The Titans did everything, and the Colts beat the Titans. So
I don't know. That should have never happened last week. Should have never. There's no reason that happened last week.
Who's the next coach in Jacksonville? Vrabel candidate down there, you think?
I think they got to get an offensive guy. They got to get somebody like Ben Johnson.
Yeah.
That's who they should go
Well,
get.
Shad'll pay, right? That Ben Johnson wants his bag.
Yeah. I mean, and it's got to be the right situation. I think he wants to. I've heard that he likes Trevor Lawrence. So when a coach likes a quarterback, then you can get him that way. But didn't Callahan say he liked Will Levis too?
Yeah. Well, what coach coming in doesn't like what he's inheriting, right? You got to say what the owner wants to hear.
But you can say that out loud. But I think Callahan really did like Levis. I bet you if you pin Callahan down right now, he'd say he's disappointed as well.
Oh.
See, you know what else, Paulie? What happens to Levis, what happens to a lot of young quarterbacks, when it goes bad, he doesn't know how to get out from underneath it.
No. He said he needs to rewire. I mean, that's a major rewiring doesn't happen quickly.
No,
I mean, that's a psychological big deal.
You're always going to make mistakes in this league, and the great quarterbacks, they all make them. It's how they respond after them. And he seems like he gets tight. Even Trevor Lawrence this year has played tight when he makes mistakes. Early in his career, Josh Allen did it. You just got to get that out of you. If you get that out of you, and I think that's where taking shots can get that out of you. You hit one or two of those, and you get 14 points, and then you make a mistake, then okay, well, I can go hit another one of those shots. Whereas when you're playing so little, little small ball, you can't do that.
Who are the best quarterback? Who do you like in this draft at this point, quarterback-wise?
I don't love them just from watching them and I haven't watched their tape, but just from watching them, Carson Beck's probably the one. Sanders is probably the two, or you could flip those guys. But
are they saving franchises?
No.
That's a long pause, Petey. You like to talk, and that was a long pause.
No, they're not.
Hey, appreciate it. Always fun talking. Good to see you. Pete Prisco, CBS Sports. Read his stuff.
We're going to Edley's for barbecue when I come.
That's right. Edley's Barbecue. Thanks a lot, Pete. Good to see you.
Take care.
Pete Prisco, CBS Sports. Be sure to read his stuff. Edley's Barbecue. That's where I am at 5 points. But we need to talk, too, about ZEN Sports, my primary sponsor of this Thursday show. ZEN Sports. You got to go download their app. Use the code TNPaul, P-A-U-L, my name. And boy, do you get some quality stuff there. If you make a bet of just $10 signing up with that code, you get a free year of paulkowarski.com, which is a pretty sweet deal. Many of you are already members, I know. But you get a no danger first wager. So you can bet up to $1,000 on a bet that you find up to plus 500 and sit back. You win that bet, you bankrolled your account forever. You lose that bet, and you sit back, and 24 hours later, that money's in your account. So it's a pretty risk-free proposition. No danger first wager. I like Kansas City getting points. Listen, even on the road, San Francisco is a point, and the Chiefs are on the road at San Francisco. San Francisco is minus 1.5. This is a very tempting line that I would consider. The Jets are favored by 1.5 at Pittsburgh. I think the Jets are due. They've lost 3 in a row by 6 or less. Devontae Adams is showing up and sure to give them some level of a boost. Pittsburgh, I don't think, is as good as their record, and they've lost 2 out of 3 to Indianapolis and Dallas. Bad teams. I think it's a get-right game for the Jets, favored by 1.5 at Pittsburgh. Those are 2 games I'd be looking at ZEN Sports. Go download the app. Use the code TN Paul. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions, of course, apply. Must be 21 and over to bet. Let's review what Pete Prisco had to say. Going to take a look here at some of your questions if you have some. Tall Texan goes right against that and says Levis shouldn't be playing. Mason should have been the starter from day one. Outside of Stroud and Daniels, is any young quarterback playing well in recent memory? They need to sit and learn. Sit and learn isn't how it works. Look, they tried sit and learn in New England behind Jacoby Brissett. And what did they get? 4 games? 3 games? The league doesn't – it's not a sit and learn league. It's very rare that you get Jordan Love. I mean, Jordan Love is a complete one-up that you get that much time. Sit and learn for a season. It stopped happening after Carson Palmer and Steve McNair. Very, very rare. Purdy had time, but Purdy wasn't drafted to be a starter, Sam is saying. Hurts was a special situation. Herbert, I'm not remembering who Herbert was behind. Sam, remind me. But it is a very, very rare situation where you've got a good enough quarterback to not put your young guy in early and ask him to take the bumps and bruises that come with the position and do it. And I've said multiple times, I think that Levis probably winds up being a good quarterback somewhere else after he's had time to mature. Pat Bannon likes Pete as a guest and says solid content. Robert says great. Listen, Pete's a phenomenal guy. Diggs has been decent. Nick points out, and that's correct. That's somebody we forgot to mention in that. You can argue that they let it go against Green Bay, maybe a little bit more. Trade for Jake Browning. Why would the Bengals be giving up Jake Browning exactly? Let's think when we call out these trades. Like, if Burrow goes down, Browning has showed that he can play. Everybody thinks everybody wants to give up their depth. The Titans get a little bit of depth somewhere, and everybody wants to trade it away. It's not the way to go. Patrick says it seems like Callahan's wanting Levis to play like Trent Dilfer, and Levis is not that type of quarterback. You have to be aggressive with Levis. He is in the mold of Cutler or Favre. Certainly long time before you'd mention him with those guys. Even Cutler, certainly Favre, but Cutler had some success. Sam, we covered this. Holt said that the second play of the game was supposed to go to Ridley, but Levis misread the D. It wasn't a deep shot, though, and I do think that they need to go more. Nick points out that the burnt ends on cheese grits here are spectacular. My man Leon probably serves that all day. You need to come around and say hello. He's calling for the fried ribs. He's pouring drinks for people, and he's a good man. If you come here, tell him I sent you. Let's cover a couple more things here, and we'll continue to have this conversation. Thanks again to Pete Prisco. So the play clock is one area that I wanted to go here. Levis says this: the play clock runs down too often, and the Titans seem like they're in a rush when they get to the line of scrimmage. Levis clapping for the ball, and things are too hurried. And it does not help the offense be smooth. Okay? Levis says, with all the motions and everything, we need to get up and set at the line of scrimmage with more than 15 seconds. We can't be breaking the huddle, approaching the line with 6-7 seconds without being able to operate what we want to for the play. I mean, that is pretty obvious there. And, Callahan said early in the week, there are times that he needs to get the play in faster. But they got to get substitutions in game-like, in and out of the huddle with urgency. That mindset then will take its course, Levis said. Holtz was very good on this. And here's what he had to say earlier today.
So we talked about this on Monday as well. After the play, we take way too long to get back to the huddle. We're walking, we're slow, we substitute a lot. So now we're slow with the subs. So that just everything keeps getting, all those little things compound. You're 2 or 3 seconds late coming back to the huddle. Then we're trying to sub personnel. Then we're getting the right guys in. So there's 2 or 3 seconds there. Then we don't really break the huddle with as much urgency as we would like. You see teams, especially in the start of training camp and things like that, really emphasizing that. So we got back to emphasizing that this week. We're subbing from the sideline in practice just to simulate that. So all those 2 seconds here, 3 seconds here, 2 seconds here, all of a sudden, if we had 7 more seconds before every play, I think we'd feel a lot better. So that's kind of been one of the emphasis of the week is get in and out of the huddle.
I mean, that's good that they're correcting it that way. It's bad that they've slipped in such a basic area that it's been a problem, right? You can't give away those 6 or 7 seconds like Nick is talking about there on a regular basis because your substitution pattern is slow and things like that. So let's look for that in Buffalo, faster operation. I think we'll see if that can make a difference for them. Certainly the motion and things that they run help them. And you want to be able to do all of that without a rush. Get in and out of the huddle quickly is a very basic tenet of offense. The play's got to come in time. Play's got to come in time. You got to be able to get in and out of the huddle, get to the line of scrimmage, let all that stuff happen. If they need to practice it, let them practice it. Trey says if you're still struggling to break the huddle, get to the snap with urgency in week 6, the coaching staff does not know what they are doing. I think that's a little strong, but it is a trouble area. Another trouble area is that Levis said after Wednesday's practice, and other guys confirmed that they had a bad practice on Wednesday. Now, teams are going to have bad practices here and there, and I think people overreacted in general to this, but I think people want to talk about it and want to hear about it. This idea that they had a bad practice on Wednesday and what it means. Now, people are looking, I think, for things that signal bad things about Callahan. And so let's take a look here. Let's take a listen to what Peter Skoronski had to say about Wednesday's practice and then break it down a little bit for what it means about or doesn't mean about Brian Callahan. Here's Skoronski.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you want to go out and have the best practice possible and prepare like it's a game environment. And it could have been better today. I think there was just some slips in energy and some slips in execution. And game day, what we do on game day starts on Wednesday in terms of our execution. And we got to have a good day on these days in the week because that's how we build our confidence for Sunday, and that's how we get mentally ready for Sunday too. So, got to be better tomorrow. We have an opportunity tomorrow, so got to get after it.
Can't have dips in energy and dips in execution. Some people are going to think, well, the defense forces that. They're going against a scout team defense. So high energy, high level execution are mandatory stuff on a day-to-day basis for a good football team. This is not a good football team right now. And where's the offensive leadership in that? I mean, I think DeAndre Hopkins is one of the top guys there. Cushenberry needs to be a top guy there. Pollard, production-wise, can be a top guy there, but I don't think that he is, those are 3 pretty soft-spoken guys that I mentioned there. Now, you don't have to be a loud screamer to be a leader, but if the 3 first guys I cite are quiet guys, I don't know what you're necessarily getting there. So offensive leadership is a big question to me on this team. You want it from the quarterback, but the quarterback's not producing right now. It's hard to expect it from Levis. It's hard to respect it from Levis, though there is a default respect for quarterback leadership that is automatic in an NFL locker room. That's going to come whether you like it or not. And I know a lot of people want to think that the team is collectively down on Levis. You may individually be down on Levis. You may go home and be studying your playbook or unwinding or whatever. Say something to your girlfriend or your wife about, feeling like Levis is letting you down. But the odds that translates all the way into your behavior and your mentality are not high. And this team, look, we've seen signs of some teams cracking around the league already, Jacksonville and New England in particular. We haven't seen signs of that. So far. So, I mean, I think that's a good thing. Trey, who is consistently a big fan and supporter of the membership of this site, of the idea of this membership, says the pod keeps getting better and better. Steal of a deal with the membership for this content site and community. $7.50 a month is not much for the content you get beyond this stuff that is free. Come read me, Blake Bedingfield, Mike Herndon, a lot of insight, analysis, and news on the Titans. If you're truly a big fan of the team, you need to know that there is less stuff out there than there used to be, and you need to get all of it. So come and join up. It's very easily done. Tall Texan is revisiting. My point was that even after this year, you might not know what you have in Levis. It takes most guys years to fully develop. These front offices has become way too quick to move on. I mean, that is the case in some instances, but could you have waited in New York on Sam Darnold? I don't know. Could you have waited in Cleveland on Baker Mayfield? This is messy. These are bad organizations mostly that we're talking about. Do you think that they could wait for Will Levis? Will Levis is in his second year. Say that they ride it out through his third year. Well, then there's going to be a contract conversation. You're not going to pay the guy if he's not playing, but he's not probably going to be a lame duck into his fourth year. Maybe he is. I don't know. But, I mean, it's an impatient league. And generally, a guy's not getting 4 years to develop. It's just the way it goes. Tell me a guy who's gotten 3 years or 3+ years to develop who's not been developing positively, who's not made great strides. I think it's very hard to find those kind of guys that you're talking about. So it's just not the reality of the league. You have 2 years to show that a team should pin its hopes on you. And if you don't show it in those 2 years, they're going to start to look for alternatives. It's the fact of the league now. You know, what did New England do with Mac Jones? What did San Francisco do with Trey Lance? They're pretty quick give-ups by organizations that have historically been pretty good. Now, San Francisco lucks out and finds Brock Purdy, you know, so that's pretty good fortune. That's like the Titans lucking out and finding Cortland Finnegan when they had Pac-Man Jones. It doesn't happen that way that much. But you got to keep trying and keep getting the next guy and look for, you know, you're looking for results. And I don't know how the Titans could go forward next year with Levis, if this is what Levis is, and say, this is our guy, uncontested. That's not going to sell very well. That's not going to sell very well at all. There were some questions about Jamal Adams. Just didn't work out. There's no real money, no financial pain there. He got a $167,500 bonus. It's a pittance in the NFL money. They reached some sort of settlement, I know, so he's not getting his entire salary that was due. If they prorated that contract and he got paid for 6 of 18 weeks, which is how long he was on the roster, that'd be $375,000. I imagine that the deal was something along those lines, maybe a little bit more. But if he got $500,000 for what he did this year, well, teams miss and take flyers, and it's not that big a deal. I saw some people complaining that Elijah Molden was given up on in exchange for them bringing in Adams. Adams didn't play. If Molden was here instead of Adams, Molden wouldn't be playing. It's really a non-factor. So I don't really see the thing there. Guys in my All 22 posted this story, which I posted earlier today. Beer sales at Titans games have increased the price over 65% over the last 10 years. That's the 7th biggest increase in that time. NFL average was a 25% increase. They give you a lot to drink about, right? When you're watching painfully bad football for a lot of this 10 years, you need an extra beer, and you're probably willing to pay 65% more 10 years over the span of 10 years. It's a shame. Look, we know that concession prices are ridiculously bad everywhere outside of Atlanta, pretty much, and Atlanta probably bakes the cost of their cheap concessions into the price of their tickets. I will say, look, I came from a middle-class family, and I went to games occasionally with my dad, who was not a big sports fan, but took me because he knew I wanted to go to games. But we ate a pretty hearty meal before we went to games. And, you know, I wasn't entitled to get everything I wanted to eat at Yankee Stadium or Madison Square Garden. And so if those prices, which are outrageous, are an issue to you, people who are willing to stop watching football because of some small political reason, or who swear off this or that because it doesn't align with their beliefs, if you will, certainly could swear off beer that is $20 for a can. I'm going to the Ryman tonight to see Jason Isbell. You know, if I want a drink, I'll have a drink, but I'm conscious that the price is outrageous. So there's my little sideline on that. Good week. I went to the Nashville Scene Best of Nashville party last night. The night before, celebrated my son's 15th birthday. And tonight, got Yankees nicely scheduled at 4 o'clock, so I can watch that game before going to the Ryman to see Jason Isbell for the first time. So I'm excited about that. Keeping up with your questions here. Trey doing a lot of talking. He wants to graduate to all 22. All 22 is full. You can only get on the wait list. It's very costly. Also, it's a big investment. These guys know what they're getting. Patience, says Mike Vrabel's burner, is the difference in an organization like the Titans and one like the Steelers. This is funny because the Steelers jettisoned Kenny Pickett very quickly. Now, the Steelers are patient with their coaches and with a lot of things. But when it comes to deciding on a young quarterback, the Steelers did what everybody is doing. They gave a guy a look, and they decided he wasn't it, and they got him the hell out. And they brought in 2 new quarterbacks this year. Not one, but 2. Went and got Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. So it's not quite the example that you think it is when you say the Steelers are an example of patience. When we're having a discussion of quarterback patience, and they drafted the first quarterback in a draft and gave up on him in 2 years, if I'm not mistaken. Less than 2 years. And the guy was traded during his second season, I believe, because he wasn't willing to dress as a backup to the guy who replaced him, who now I believe is the Titans' backup quarterback. Spencer said, if we brought in Zach Wilson or Bryce Young this offseason for a quarterback battle, would Levis get cut by default to not throw off locker room culture? Locker room culture. I mean, the locker room plays for the guy who's the quarterback. I don't get this thing where there's like a huge divide. I mean, if it's a close battle, that's unfortunate. The coach then picks a quarterback and the team plays behind the quarterback. We'd rather not have a good backup because some of the guys might think he should start. I mean, I think you control your locker room quarterback and have the best roster you can have. I don't know that Bryce Young is going to be a potential alternative at his price. I think he's too small to play NFL quarterback. Yes, I know there have been some small, successful NFL quarterbacks. They're outliers, generally speaking. So I bring in the best people you can. I mean, I don't know if Zach Wilson can turn into a player or not. Some play pretty well against the Titans at the new Meadowlands, and this tier of quarterbacks who were bad and now are serviceable or serviceable plus he's in the pool of candidates to be in that. And all of those guys, everybody says no way. I think most people said no way to Sam Darnold, and no way to Baker Mayfield, and no way to Geno Smith. And here they are. Pretty good. Need more J.C. Latham interviews from me, Paul. Josh F. says. The rookie class is the only glimmer of hope the rest of the way. Well, I like talking to J.C. Latham, but he is a little bit he's better one-on-one than in a group, I will say that. Well, I'll try to talk to him some more. Tall Texan, to Pete's point earlier about wild throws, who cares? This isn't a wow throw league anymore. It's extremely dink and dunk. That doesn't mean that you stop trying to get chunk plays. The Titans and most teams are not well equipped to drive 17 plays to 7 points. It's certainly not working for the Titans, who, while they scored 31 points in one game, generally hover around 17. They're allowed to try to make big plays. And I watch NFL highlights every week, and I see big plays. There may be fewer big plays, but there are still big plays. Check your fantasy stats. There are still wide receivers who put up some significant numbers. Maybe not as big as they used to be, but significant. Yeah, somebody says, have you seen Patrick Mahomes play? He's wild almost every game. Yeah, well, he's not playing particularly well this season. His receiving core is depleted. It's down this year, and then he suffers two major injuries to two guys that they were counting on. Odds are that they add somebody before the trade deadline, but they also it's a team that just knows how to win. And it's pretty ridiculous how good they are at just knowing how to win. And so, that when you're won a couple Super Bowls in a row, things can really carry. Spencer says, is there anyone in the media room who still thinks Levis can turn it around this season? Seems like everyone is bleak across the board. I'm not surveying the media room. There are only a couple media opinions that matter to me, but I think the tone is the same for virtually everyone. It gets harder and harder, but the understanding is that he's going to play. And so, I said this on Robbie and Rexroad the other day. It's conceivable to me that he gets better. It's conceivable to me that anyone gets better. And so it's possible we see him get better. Come here, Leon. Here's Leon over there. Come here. He's not coming here. Maybe he'll come here. This is Leon. He's the best. You got to come here and get a drink from Leon. Edley's Barbecue. Yeah, Leon, say hello to the people.
What's going on, people?
This is Leon. What's your favorite drink to pour here? What's your people be drinking? Margarita?
Get the margarita.
He makes a kick-ass margarita.
You already know.
You're here all the time, right?
Monday through Thursday.
Monday through Thursday. If you come to 5 Points to Edley, look for my man Leon. Appreciate you, man.
Appreciate you.
He's great. He's terrific. The wait staff here is terrific. We're in 5 Points. Edley's has 9 locations throughout Middle Tennessee. The newest one's in Gallatin. I'm in 5 Points, East Nashville. It's 1004 Woodland Street. Food is just phenomenal. Burnt ends on grits, a little spicy. I'm a big spice wimp, but I can't resist it. Have it all the time. Go to your local Edley's. They do the bar-B-Q. I'm fascinated by who chooses what in that regard. ZEN Sports, you got to sign up. Use TN Paul as your sign-up code, and then make a no danger first wager up to $1,000 on something that's plus 500 or less odds-wise, and you'll do very well there. Lots coming up at paulkuharsky.com, including a trip to Buffalo and a podcast after the Titans and Bills finish their game. Please like this on YouTube. or if you're listening to it on audio, like, rate, subscribe, review, all of those things. Don't block the box. Be sure to lock your locks. My thanks to Edley's and Zen Sports and to all of you. Go sign up at paulkuharski.com. Cheers.